Good afternoon, committee. We're going to go ahead and get started with the Build Kansas. Susan, could you call roll? Because I know we have some members that are online as opposed to being in person here in the Capitol building.
Senator Masterson.
I'm here.
Troy.
Here.
Senator Plays. Ready?
Present.
She said. Senator Schaus. Representative Francis.
Here.
Representative Helgerson. Representative Hoffman.
Here.
Representative Vaughn.
Here.
So that should be a total of 6, correct?
I had 7.
You have 7. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is the approval of the last meeting that we had on July 16th, 2024. I don't know if everybody had a chance to take a look at those, but do we have a motion? Representative Francis.
Chairman, I move approval of the minutes.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, seconded by Representative Hoffman. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the presentation on the Build Kansas funding commitments that we have to date. So I'll now turn it over to Matthew Volz with the Kansas Infrastructure Hub, and on behalf of the Build Kansas Steering Committee, Mr. Volz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. Today we have 3 applications we're going to be reviewing. And then we're going to give you some updates as well on the Build Kansas Fund and some of the project numbers that we've experienced over the last 10 months or so. Just real quick, we go through this every month, talk about the BIL, Bipartisan Infrastructure Law overview. Keep in mind it's $1.2 trillion, 40% of which is discretionary dollars or grant dollars, 60% is formula. And it's that discretionary dollars that the Build Kansas Fund is really trying to get here into the state of Kansas by investing in the match dollars for those federal grants. Our workflow, real quick, local entities submit applications to the Build Kansas Fund and to the Kansas Infrastructure Hub office. We do a completeness review on the applications. They go through our steering committee for review and approval, and ultimately they come here to the advisory committee for advice on the application and approval. Once approved, we do notify the state treasurer's office, and that essentially means that the funds are committed to that project, and then we await an award of the federal grant before taking any further action. And a reminder that, you know, Build Kansas funds are not committed or not distributed until they actually win a federal grant. And then we also have a reimbursement process that we worked out with the state treasurer's office. It is, you know, it looks complex on this slide here, but rest assured, we've got a good process with the state treasurer's office to get those Build Kansas funds into the hands of the applicants once they complete their agreement with the state treasurer's office. We still have not done any of these agreements yet. We've got 3 in process right now and are waiting those to come back to the state treasurer's office signed so we can start reimbursing those entities for their Build Kansas matching dollars. This slide just represents the fact that, you know, when you apply for a federal grant, it's a parallel process with the Build Kansas Fund application. We have people applying to the federal grant and applying to the Build Kansas Fund at the same time. Thing we ask is that you turn your Build Kansas Fund application in prior to the federal grant deadline, and that's one of our requirements. Again, we're not selecting projects, and only Build Kansas funds are only awarded or pushed out to the applicant if they are awarded a federal grant. And entities in Kansas can apply for federal grants just with or without help from the Infrastructure Hub or with or without assistance from the Build Kansas Fund. Real quick, our Build Kansas Fund project numbers. With respect to the number of the projects the Build Kansas Fund has processed since October 2023, 60 projects have received final approval through our process. Now, of those 60 projects, 41 are still awaiting grant announcements or awards. It is a long cycle with the federal government, as you know. 11 actually have been awarded, and 8 have been told that they are not going to be receiving federal grants. In terms of funding dollars, the total amount that we've approved is just over $124 million. And in gray there again are those ones that are still awaiting a federal award for just over $66 million worth of Build Kansas funds. The $23 million represents the amount of Build Kansas funds that we've committed to projects that have been awarded federal grants. And then the $34 million is what the grant amount is for the grants that were not awarded federal grants. And that money will be returned to the restored to the Build Kansas fund. Just in terms of return on investment, that $23 million that the Build Kansas Fund is investing in those 11 projects that have been awarded federal grants is just over $23 million. That has resulted in just over $31 million being brought into the state of Kansas in additional federal funds for a 136% return on investment. So it's all good news. Just to update you on some recent grant wins through the Build Kansas Fund. The Southwest Kansas Groundwater Management District, they just received a Water Smart Water and Energy Efficiency Grant for $500,000. That does have a $500,000 Build Kansas Fund match commitment, so it's 50-50 grant program. And that one is going to be replacing open irrigation ditches with pipeline to avoid infiltration and evaporation losses and conserve water. And then the city of Ellsworth just received an airport infrastructure grant for $117,429. And that one, they're going to be building a new snow removal equipment building at the airport. And that one had a $13,048 Build Kansas Fund investment. And those are just announced here just in the last month. Just to follow up on a couple of applications from last month's meeting that we had on July 16th. There were 2 applications that were conditionally approved at that meeting based on a funding commitment from the local agencies. The city of Topeka had an application for an ATIIP grant. They were showing no local match dollars. The committee asked that they contribute a small amount of a local match. We went back to both City of Topeka and City of Coffeyville. Both of them were ATIIP grants, infrastructure or active transportation infrastructure grants. Went back to both of them, asked if they could contribute that 5% that the advisory committee asked for. Both of them said yes, and so therefore, again, that was the condition of approval. So they were approved, and they're moving forward with those grants. All right, to the 3 projects we're going to look at for recommendations today. Are there any questions on that by the way?
Committee, are there any questions for Mr. Volz? So the 2 for Southwest Kansas and the city of Ellsworth, you said they were awarded within the last month by the federal government?
Yes.
Okay. And then and we can talk about that later when we get to the later part of the agenda about Topeka and Coffeyville, but they've gone ahead and agreed to have a cost share, and then they've been forwarded on.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on to the 3 applications? All right. Not seeing or hearing none, so you may continue.
All right, thank you. Just so you know that the steering committee reviewed these applications on August 8th and the 15th. There are 3 applications. One is for, again, this Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program, or ATIIP, from the city of Pittsburgh. And we have 2 Safe Streets and Roads for All grants, or SS4A grants, one from our Kansas City and one from Dickinson County. All right, so the first one, number 2025-066, is from the city of Pittsburgh. And this is, again, is for an ATIIP grant. They are making a request from the Build Kansas Fund of $236,944.95. They are committing local funds of $110,574.31 for a total project cost of $1,579,633. If they are awarded this grant, it will unlock $1,232,113.74 worth of federal dollars. This is an 80-20 match program. If you do the math on this one, you'll notice that the match is actually slightly above 20%. It's actually 22%. And the reason for that is this particular program gives you credit for having a match amount higher than the minimum, which is 20%. And we saw that with some of our other ATIIP grant recipients last month, or applicants last month. They were asking to do a little bit more than 20%, just so they got that better score. And so that's the same thing the City of Pittsburgh is doing. What this project is going to do is they need pedestrian access. They have a hotel zone on the north end of Broadway, and what they want to do is they want to have sidewalks on both sides of the roadway so that people at the hotels can access the retail and restaurant zone to the south of the hotels. So they don't have to get in their cars and drive there. They can just sort of walk in that direction. And that's what this application is for. It's going to build sidewalks and ADA compliant ramps. So the steering committee reviewed this on, we received it on July 16th, we reviewed it on August 8th, and we recommended it for approval. So we bring it to you today for final advice.
All right, committee, any questions in regards to this first application? Any from those online? All right, seeing none? All right, so if we don't need to have a motion, we'll just do it like we did in previous meetings. If there's no objection to this application, then it goes ahead and moves forward. So we'll move on to the second application.
All right, thank you. Kansas City, in this case, Arc City is applying for a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. Guess another 80% federal, 20% local match project. In this case, Arc City is asking for $57,000 in Build Kansas funds. They're contributing $3,000 of their own funding. And this will unlock $240,000 of federal funding for a total project cost of $300,000. And in this case, this particular project is to develop a comprehensive safety action plan for Arc City, which will look at roadway safety as well as safety of vulnerable road users, which includes pedestrians, bicyclists, and those with disabilities. This application was received on August 8th, was reviewed by our steering committee on August 15th, and it was recommended for approval. And so we bring it to you today for final advice. And just so you know, the federal deadline in this particular grant program is actually next week on August 29th.
Do you repeat that? The deadline is August 29th?
Correct.
Okay. We actually have one before.
Yeah, it's good news, yeah. So I wanted to point that out.
Any further discussion in regards to this application for our Kansas City? Any from those online? All right. Since there's no objection, we'll just go ahead and send this forward based off consensus. So we'll go on and move on to the last application.
All right.
Mr. Bolts.
Dickinson County, number 2025-068. Again, they are applying for a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, or SS4A grant. They're asking for $36,000 from the Build Kansas Fund, contributing $12,000 of their own funding. Federal funding that they'll receive is $192,000 for a total project cost of $240,000. And again, this one right here, they're going to be doing a comprehensive safety plan in Dickinson County, again, looking at sidewalks and roadway safety for drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, and those with disabilities. This was received on August 12th. It was reviewed by our steering committee on August 15th and recommended for approval. And again, comes to you today for final advice. And again, the deadline for this one is next week on August 29th.
All right, committee, any further discussion in regards to this application? Any questions for those that are participating online? All right, seeing none, again, without any objection, we'll go ahead and move this application on as well. I do like the preference of having these before the actual deadline with the federal government. So.
Yeah. And the real advantage in that is so once we get them approved by advisory committee, we produce an award letter from our office. We send that to them, and they actually can include that in their application. That really does help them out with their application itself. Shows the federal government they've got good funding commitment behind for local match. Just a couple of notes. We did have a couple of ineligible applications this past month. The city of McPherson had sent an application into us for a transportation alternatives program. It was received after the federal deadline. That is one requirement we have, is that they have to be received before the federal deadline. So that one was turned away. And then the city of Washington had applied for an energy efficiency and conservation block grant program, but it was determined later that it didn't actually have a match requirement. So therefore, it didn't need to be applied for.
Are there any questions in regards to the ineligible applications? All right, Mr. Volz.
All right. So last month, the advisory committee, we had a lengthy discussion about applicant cost share expectations. At the July 16th meeting, you asked my office to develop a policy starting from July and onward to inform applicants of this expectation of a local match. We have done that. And we have posted that to our website and put the information out there on LinkedIn and in presentations that we do to make sure people are aware of this expectation of a local match. We don't specify an amount, but we do put a suggested guideline in the online guidance for this. So, again, the policy is that we do expect applicants to contribute a portion of the non-federal match requirement. It can be a form of cash or an in-kind contribution. And really what it's designed to do is to show commitment to the project. And we think this actually will show good commitment, and it will actually give us better applications because they've got a little bit more skin in the game at the end of the day. It should be a significant contribution. That was one thing the committee had asked for. Again, you didn't ask for a certain amount, but that question just comes up automatically from our applicants. And so we've put a guideline in the documentation, and this seems to be satisfying that question that they've got of how much should they contribute for the local match. We do have exclusions to this as well that they can apply for. If you have a financial hardship, you can apply for an exclusion from the match dollars or local match dollars. If you're participating in a collaborative project with multiple agencies and stakeholders, or if you're engaging in a regional project with multiple cities or counties, you can apply for an exclusion to this match requirement. I will tell you that we are publicizing it right now, and we received no negative feedback to it, and people, have been putting applications in. They've been putting a local cost share in, and it's really been, fairly successful.
Well, and I know when we had the meeting last time, and I think this was kind of the anticipation of when this, committee and this process was actually formulated in the budget of 2023. And I believe Representative Vaughn had expressed some concern about, we had set up this fund to help out our smaller communities throughout the state. And I think during the discussion that we had last month, which it doesn't need to be in the recommendations for a match, because I think it's good to have the anticipation that we are looking for some type of a local match. And as you said, it could possibly benefit them better by having a local match when we forward it on to the federal government. But I think it's under the purview of this committee that if we have an extremely small community and it's very difficult for them to come up with some type of local match, whether that be in monetary or in kind, I think it's up to this discussion and the decision of this committee to say, hey, you're a community of 400 people. It may be very difficult for you to come up with a match. So I just want that to be expressed. So if we do have an application and there may not be a match, that all of us are of the understanding that we can make that decision with this committee.
Yep, absolutely. Senator Reddy, last month's meeting, asked for a definition of what the in-kind contribution can be, because that local match can be cash or it can be in-kind. And again, that's materials, property, your time is worth money. And so we make sure we tell all of our local entities, account for that time that it takes to administer that grant, because it can be significant, and that can actually act as your in-kind match. And just so you know, We are working on a document right now that would define the in-kind match more clearly for them so that we can give this to them just so they are aware of, hey, here's what in-kind is, here's what qualifies, here's a sample calculation of how to do in-kind match calculations for your applications. Just trying to give them as much information as possible. Like you said, a city of 400 people may not be used to doing this, may not have done this before, and this just helps them out to do a better application.
Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, if I understand, even preparing a grant application of this nature, there's usually some kind of cost involved in that. So, I mean, I think that's an important thing, that a community of even 400 people, sometimes they've had substantial costs just getting in a position where they can make the application.
Yeah.
Or in a situation where you have a really small community, I mean, they're not going to have the staff in the city to, generate the application. And so it might be the city council that actually has their time. And so that should be accounted for as well.
Yeah, with a lot of these federal grants, they don't allow you to count your time and money that you spend prior to being awarded the grant or prior to getting your grant agreement. So any of that money you spend on developing the grant application, significant, yes, for sure, but they don't allow you to count that as local match. So it's only after you've got your grant agreement can you actually start applying your time as your local match. You just got to read the rules, be real careful about that. And one thing they say repeatedly throughout all these grant application documents is do not spend any money prior to your grant agreement because you will not get reimbursed for it. So they're very clear about that, yeah.
Any further discussion on the cost share policy?
I have my hand. I don't know. Can you see me?
Yes, Senator Reddy.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know. My video is not working, but either way, I wanted to say thank you for the definition or what in-kind might stand for. And I think the representatives that spoke are absolutely correct. As I visit some of my smallest communities, the city manager is also the public works director, the zoning director, and the parks and rec director, and the grant director. And they're going on webinars and trying to learn how to fill out the applications. I think they're following all the resources and tools we give them, but sometimes it's just taking them a year or two to understand all the complex issues of grant writing. So I'm glad we're going to look at what a 400 or 500 population community might be able to offer and try to give them other ways to participate in it. But yeah, it is the resources are there, and all of them would qualify if they just had a good grant writer for them because they have so many high needs in their communities. So I appreciate at least what we're trying to do for in-kind part of it. Thank you.
Any other further questions or comments? Okay.
Well, and I would just add in response to Senator Reddy's comment, our office does provide technical assistance. We have a whole staff dedicated to providing that. Any community can ask us for help with their grant application process, ask questions about a particular grant program, ask if what grant program their project might apply towards. And we do have funding as well to assist with grant writing to a limited extent, but at least we can give them some tips and tricks and help review their applications to make sure that there are good quality applications that are going into the federal government. That's really key for us, for the state of Kansas, is getting good quality applications going to the federal government, because that's really what's going to end up driving us getting grant awards from the federal government. So we definitely want to see that. To that end, I would also add that we're having a grant writing peer exchange on September 19th here in Topeka. So we're inviting a lot of our private sector grant writers to that and organizations that write grants just to come in and share best practices, again, with this goal of getting quality grant applications submitted from the state of Kansas.
All right, you may proceed.
All right, just to wrap up, again, talking about technical assistance, we do a lot of this around the state of Kansas right now. We've got a lot of events that we cover. We try to cover all of the economic development districts in the state, all 8 of them. This is just a map that shows the distribution of how we do technical assistance. We try to spread it around to make sure we have a good even coding of technical assistance around the state. We don't try to do too much or too little in any one region. We do it by sector as well. Transportation and water tend to be the bulk of the questions that we get regarding technical assistance, but we also get them in other categories of infrastructure as well. So yeah, we're starting to see a good response to our technical assistance. I will say that we've seen a little bit of a decline in the requests over the summer, but we're starting to see an uptick again in August here, and it's very cyclical in nature, but it'll start going back up here again as more grants start getting pushed out onto the street. And with that, that's all I have for today.
So if I can go back to the, technical assistance by sector.
Yep.
Broadband, cybersecurity, and resilience are the lowest. Is there any particular reason as to why they'd only be 5%, 4%, and 3%?
Yeah, broadband, if you know any of the folks over at the Office of Broadband Development, they have their own technical assistance program and program where they get out and talk to the communities. So they're really doing a lot of this on their own already. And so, we don't necessarily see a lot of requests come from them. On the cybersecurity, they don't have a lot of grant programs to start with. So there's not really a lot of questions that come in that area. On the resilience side, I will say that has been going up a little bit as the Emergency Management Office starts to talk more about BRIC grants and they start to see more of these resilient issues. But to date, that's just not an area we get a lot of questions in. So I couldn't really tell you why there's not a lot in the resilience side, but yeah, the reason for cybersecurity and broadband that it's generally broadband has their own competing TA program and they do a really great job of it and they're the experts, and so we sort of leave that to them.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Bolts? All right. Thank you for being here today.
All right, thank you.
So I think unless there's any other committee discussion, advice, or recommendations, do we have anybody online that's? Okay. I will go ahead and take a motion to adjourn the meeting. And there's been a motion by Representative Francis. Is there a second? Second by Representative Hoffman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. We are adjourned. And talking with Charday, and we're looking at a tentative schedule of September 18th for the next meeting, but we'll see how many applications we have and then email all of you to make sure when we set up that meeting.